Chair Conference Committee, Senator Miller, Chairman, recommends that the Senate reseed from the Senate amendments as printed in House Journal pages 1802 through 1813, adopt amendments as follows, and place 1250 on the 7th order.
Senator Miller.
Mr. President, when 1250 left the Senate, it had $125 million in tax cuts. As it comes back, it now has $350 million. That's $251 million in individual income tax cuts and $101 million in corporate income tax cuts. There's also a few measures that were in the 1250 as it left the Senate. Those are retained in the bill, such as the exclusion for capital gains and the language to correct the real estate investment for Renaissance zones. What is not in the bill is the child care tax credit. That was removed. The House had some misgivings about that. For one, they felt that it could balloon out of control. I felt it was probably an okay tax credit to start, but we are not done with that, and we have some other bills we can negotiate with that. But that's how the bill comes to you in the Senate, and I ask you to approve the report.
Further discussion, Senator Cook.
Mr. President, I want to thank the senator from Grafton for his hard work on this bill, bringing this conference committee report to the floor. Probably deserved a little hazardous duty pay for this work, but I too ask that you would approve the conference committee report, probably for a different reason, and I'm sure we'll have that discussion once we approve the conference committee report and talk about the final passage.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, the question is on the approval of the conference committee report. As many as are in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed, say nay. The report is adopted. Switching to the 14th order, House Bill 1250. Madam Secretary.
House Bill 1250, a bill for an act to create and enact sections to the Century Code relating to individual and corporate income tax rates and credits and increased allocations from the State Aid Distribution Fund, to repeal Chapter 57 of the Century Code relating to elimination of the financial institution tax, and to provide an effective date. The fiscal note indicates reduction in the general fund revenues for the 13-15 biennium of $358,790,000.
Senator Miller.
Mr. President, I think 1250 in its current condition represents an incredibly bold step forward in the long-term fiscal health of our state and economy. I think it's important that we take these measures when we have the means to do so. In the last biennium, our income tax collections on personal income tax, individual income tax alone, increased by $220 million. In 2004, our total tax collections for individual income tax was $214 million. Our increase in the last 2 years eclipses our 2004 tax collections. This represents a 25% income tax cut from last year. I think this is a proper and necessary step for not only growth and personal freedom of our economy and the job creators and the wage earners in our state, but also for keeping the state government responsible with our dollars. We must put money back into people's pockets. It's necessary. And we're going to do that in a major way. We passed this and couple that with our property tax buy-downs. We're going to be well over $1 billion in tax relief for North Dakotans. That's a bold statement. That says North Dakota is ready to do business. And we want people to come here and make a good life. I think this is necessary. I think this is easily doable because this legislature says we can, and we will. And this is going to be for the future.
Senator Cook.
Mr. President, Every session, it seems like, at least for the last 3 sessions, we have a conversation in the final days about balance. And the balance is, we balance between what we spend, what we save, and what we give back. At the start of this session, I have continually said that our goal needs to be around $1 billion in tax relief. And Mr. President, we are going to be there. Mr. President, when we talk about balance, we also have to talk about the balance in what type of tax relief. When it comes to income tax, the executive budget had $125 million in income tax reduction. Earlier this session, this chamber passed out $250 million in income tax deduction. After crossover, we brought a bill out of the Finance and Tax Committee at $190 million in income tax reduction. Senate appropriation brought it to the floor at 125. And that's the one we sent over. Now we have 350. Mr. President, I think we all agree that we are going to reduce income tax, both corporate and personal, for the 3rd session in a row. And that is a bold statement. That is the trend that we have established here. But it's also a trend that we can say is stable. It offers stability. It's a trend that we can sustain. So the question is, how do we balance the tax relief? Mr. President, I'd say that if we pass $350 million, we got to find 100 somewhere. And Mr. President, I'd argue that if we can find 100 some more when it comes to balance, I would argue that that 100 could better be spent on further property tax reduction. Mr. President, we got $750 million in property tax, $250 million in income tax reduction. That's the $1 billion. And I think it was our goal from the beginning. I think that's where we should go. And so, Mr. President, I would urge a red light on this bill, that we settle with the $250 million. That's still in another bill over there. So that'll come. So I'd ask for a red light on House Bill 1250.
Further discussion? Hearing none, the question is on the final passage of House Bill 1250. Would the Secretary please open the key? All senators have voted. Any senator wishing to change their vote? Secretary, close the key. Final tally on House Bill 1250 reveals 12 senators voting yea, 35 senators voting nay. The bill is lost. Senator Klein.